episode, we are going to unpack the power of community and share ways in which the community, including neighbors, aunties, parents, can do to support the healthy development of a child. Welcome, Mya. Welcome, Rhea. So Mya is a renowned community leader in the Bay Area. She was a candidate for the 2018 Oakland City Council District 6 and placed third out of 5 candidates. In September 2022, Mya Whitaker was selected as the Bay Area Urban Debate League's new executive director. Mya was once labeled as what some may call a troubled youth. The birth of her son Kai was the turning point that caused her to begin self-inventory and evaluate her personal choices. She not only set out a path to discover her role in society, but to serve a community that is ridden with violence, plagued with drugs, gangs, and destruction. Mya is committed to seeking and employing methods to prevent the violence she was once a part of. She serves as a counselor, debate instructor to inner city youth, and was formerly a commissioner for Oakland's Police Oversight Commission. Mya understands what it's like being a Black youth in Oakland who has overcome her challenges, still with room to grow. Mya, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Is there a few words that you want to share with Rhea about who you are?
We were discussing I'm excited to be here. I love to share my journey with people. It's been a while since I've talked about just anything that happened with campaigning and being a mom and supporter of community. It's a lot sometimes, but it's good. I'm super excited to be here. And just a shout out to anybody that is willing to sponsor a Steve Harvey budget for a child who is currently wearing suits. I have a little boy who enjoys wearing suits to picture day. So we were having a good joke about that. I have a 5th grader who is very, very interested in 3-piece suits for any occasion, baby shower, picture day. We want to keep that motivation going. So just something to make y'all smile.
I was like, the photos of seeing Kai in the suits are definitely something I look forward to every year now since picture day that he's had one. So I think you can let Kai know that.
We're all rooting for the suits.
Next up, we have Rhea Boyd. Rhea is a pediatrician, public health advocate, and scholar. She writes and teaches on the relationship between structural racism, inequity, and health. Rhea has a scholarly focus on child and public health impacts of structural inequality. Rhea partners with community-based organizations and nonprofits, public health departments, and academic centers to understand and address forms of social inequity that contribute to poor and inequitable health outcomes. Currently, she is the Senior Advisor on Equity and Justice for the California Children's Trust, an initiative to advance mental health access for children and youth across California. Rhea, is there anything you'd like to share about yourself with Mya?
No, like I was saying, we got to chat just a little bit before we started, and I'm excited to be here like she is and hear more of her story, share more of mine, and just, connect as 3 women who want to live in a thriving community and be a part of that.
Thank you so much. I wanted to start off by reading with you all a message from my neighbor, who was 5 years old at the time when my brother passed away due to gun violence. Hernan, my brother, was 18 years old, and the whole community block was neighborhood friends. And so she recently reached out to me and wrote this message, and I think it really frames this conversation. So I'll go ahead and read it. I never shared this to anyone, but I remember that my family went over to your house back then after the day, and I was so small, yet I was still able to comprehend the feeling of loss. I couldn't completely understand some things because I was a small person, but the feeling stuck with me all these years. It's been 15 years, by the way. I love that you're able to share your feelings and experiences, and there's something very beautiful about someone when they allow others to see them.
Mm.
And so I just wanted to share that because I've known my neighbor for most of my life, but I never heard the impact of losing a neighbor in her, and knowing that she was so young and couldn't really understand what was happening, but understood that feeling. And so I wanted to just share this recollection of a community's member's first memory of what it means to lose someone. And let's just go ahead and start with having common language for us so that we can have a conversation. And I wanted to start off by defining what community means to us. I wanted to see if, Rhea, you wanted to share with us what community means to you.
Sure. First, I want to say that was the first time I had heard about. Well, this is the first time I'd met you, and so I didn't know and hadn't heard about your brother's loss. And I'm so sorry that your family experienced that. The letter you read from your neighbor was really powerful and impactful. And, hopefully in our conversation, we can talk more about things that are shared among community, including things like loss. For me, I think community, I think of in two ways. Personally, as a parent now, community are the people that are helping me raise my child. They're the people who watch her when I have to work. They're the people who say hi to her when she's out playing at the playground. They're the people who live close to us, but also the ones who live far away or not in walking distance, but drive to come visit us to check on how she's doing or share a meal with us or just relax and hang out. I feel like community are people who give us like love and emotional support, but also tangible material things like food and childcare. So our community, I think now is very much so centered around the people who are helping us take good care of our little girl. Professionally, as a clinician, community is used a fair bit in medicine, and I don't think it necessarily means the same thing. I think it is a term that can be a bit overused. I think in medicine, like hospitals and clinics can talk about their community or patients' communities, but the truth is it probably spans multiple communities, like multiple small networks of people that know each other and help each other and depend on each other to be well. So I think in terms of medicine, probably when we go get our medical care, we're experiencing people who come from multiple different communities. And every professional setting might be like that, where people just come from different places. And then in that workplace or in that setting, you can become like a community to each other. Coworkers can also support each other. The patients who are cared for year after year, can become a bit of a community to each other. Like they can form relationships around their shared experience of healthcare. But it's not the same thing as a community I experience personally, just like in my home. So those are the two ways I think of community.
Yeah, I really like the distinction you made too, because I sometimes feel like community feels different in different places too. And I really enjoy the picture you painted of what community looks like for your family too. And so, Maya, I wanted to open it up to you too. What does community mean to you?
I'm gonna piggyback on like Dr. Rhea said. I think my community experience is really with my family, youth. I wanted to, like she mentioned in the beginning, give grace to me and Esmeralda met when I was her mentor in our debate programming. I was at Lionel Wilson, which was a predominantly Latino school. And I wasn't getting any play, I'll be honest. I wasn't getting any traction with the kids. It was a real cultural buy-in issue. And me and Esmeralda both were part of a group called Ignite that got young girls interested in running for office. And one of our mutual mentors shared that you and Esmeralda have a lot more in common than you think, and you need to go sit down and talk to her. And when we sat in Sacramento on a field trip, and she shared about her brother, And I shared with her that I had also been experiencing multitude grief like that and trying to figure out what's next. And we keep running into these same spaces. It really broke down the barriers of like the other and what does community look like, and allow for our friendship to like blossom and grow. From mentor to really like a friend, I would say that is a community. It comes around a few times. I thought about such like the support for running for office, the people who showed up when I said, hey, I got this idea about running for office, were people who I had brief interactions with or long-term relationships with, like everybody from Diego, Ceci, Vicky, and Harry, Keisha, Willeen, even Willeen's mom selling hot dogs on the corner. Like, we were standing on 77th and MacArthur and East Oakland, like, we are going to register voters. Grab a coffee with us while you grab your weed. Like, we are talking to you. Tell your cousin in Santa Rita they can vote for me. Tell them that they can actually register the pod. Like, we were really out there, like, educating our community. And it was fun. You know, it wasn't scary. It was, you know, who knows better than where the foot traffic is in our neighborhood? Who knows better than they're going to talk to me because they want to know. Nobody's talking to us down here. Nobody's, you know, feeling like your voice is worth something. And I know you care about our community. And then I would say also returning the favor through grief. My sister overdosed last year from fentanyl and meth. And the first person that like showed up at my house was Esmeralda. And Esmeralda was there when I got the call from the coroner and we were explaining what was the next steps. And that's what I mean of like show up for a community. Like, I didn't think I was going to lose a sibling. But Esmeralda really showed up for that. And in doing that, she's also been a part of me becoming like a real matriarch. My sister has 3 daughters. So really stepping up and showing up and bringing them to Oakland, going to LA to see them. Esmeralda was the one that was like, hey, let me take y'all pictures. And now we have like group pictures of us all together that we can appreciate for a lifetime of like, you know, sorry to make her cry, but it's like, you know, these are things that are important of like our community showing up of like, I didn't think when she hit me, like, let me take y'all pictures, like, okay, but like the girls appreciate them, my son appreciate them, I appreciate them. Like, it's little stuff that your community puts in play to help you get through some crazy stuff. So that's community. A lot of nurturing.
That really touched me because this is what community does, right? It fills in the gaps that structural inequality leaves behind. And on that topic, this is the next language piece that I wanted to talk about, which is structural inequality. Before we dive into our conversations, I really wanted us to just have a common language around community, but also structural inequality. And so I'll go ahead and I wanted to ask Rhea, how has structural inequality showed up either in your work as a clinician or in your work as just educating the world, the country, about the mental health and well-being of young children?
Wow, it's a big question. I also want to just say it's so beautiful, the relationship that you guys have. Like, I feel very honored to just hear about y'all's journeys and the ways you guys have been a part of each other's lives. Like, that's really, really beautiful. And Mya, I'm very sorry to hear about your sister's loss. That must be so hard for y'all. And I'm so glad you've had Esmeralda and other people's support around it and that you can be the matriarch for, you know, your nieces. That's really beautiful. So structural inequality, gosh. So structural inequality is like a term that I use that refers to the ways that inequality is kind of baked into how systems function and how people live. So instead of inequality or the fact that some people have more than other people being the result of prejudice or somebody's negative feelings towards somebody, instead inequality can result from the ways that laws give different people different access to different resources that you need to live and be well. So some people can live in an area that has beautiful parks and clean sidewalks and maintained roads and libraries and protected public spaces. Those are collective investments that use all of our tax dollars, but they're not always evenly distributed. And so structural inequality refers to the ways that even something like a park or a sidewalk or a maintained road can be in one neighborhood but not another because of underinvestment in certain places or public abandonment of certain places. And historically, the places that have seen underinvestment or a lack of attention from our collective resources are places where brown people live, places where Black people live, places where Latino people live, places where new immigrants live, places where people who don't speak English live. And so when those areas are underinvested in, they also become areas of concentrated poverty. So it's not then just Black and brown folks, it's also Black and brown folks who have less resources. And so then over time, that can compound in an area where generations have experienced that type of deprivation. And when that happens at generations, then people don't have sometimes resources to tap into to get out of their struggle. So like if you fall on hard times, but you're generations back and living in these areas that have been deprived of resources, sometimes there isn't someone to turn to help you out of that hard time, or the people that you do turn to are also having a hard time. And so it puts extra stress on them to help you out too. And so structural inequality refers to the ways that that's baked into laws and bigger processes that aren't just individual decisions between individual people about how they feel. Does that make sense? Did I explain that in a helpful way? I mean, y'all know.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was the best, probably one of the best ways I've heard structural inequality be explained in a very digestible way. So thank you for that, Rhea. Mya, you mentioned earlier that we became close when we realized that we had more in common than we first thought. Running for office took a toll on your well-being and your family's well-being. Can you share with us the family and community experiences you navigated as a Black single mother while running for office with your child?
Yes. So Esme knows. I'm sorry, I call her Esme. Her
Totally
professional
cool.
name is Esmeralda. Don't call her no Esme. But Esme, running for office was very tough. So I think I credit my experience and tough skin to being from the community, right? But I was not prepared for my community in some ways turning up against me or critiquing things that I'm from here, so this is normal. Like, I'm a single mother. I ain't the only single mother. I'm from the East, my neighborhood. I am not the only single mother. It's unfortunate, but it happened. And I felt like I was doing a good thing for my child and my community running for office. Why? Because I had just finished college. I had been working in the community. I had just finished Emerge, which is a group that gets women ready to run for office. So I was feeling really motivated and in an optimistic space that I see that power and change in these positions against structural inequality. Like you mentioned, some of this might be helped if I can get in the space that makes the rules, because some of my friends who are impacted by these rules don't even realize they're rules. Like, I was sitting in a class with the officer explaining, you will go to jail if he is riding in a car with a gun with you and we pull y'all over and nobody know who gun it is. Everybody goes to jail. Do you know that happens a lot more than what people think of? Like, well, you should just... No, I did not know that. I did not know that, and I was a college student. Did not know that. So you'll be held accountable for that ignorance. And I did not take for granted that some of my friends, just the day and time, were arrested and whole lives were changed behind that decision to ride with a gun in the car or be with somebody, girl, boy, whatever. So when running for office, I wanted to take my experience and try to make it more so known that there's a lot of kids who are like me, who did the right thing, who want to stay in Oakland, and we can't afford to stay. Like Dr. Rhea mentioned, running for office, I also got to see, because of the district I was running for is very diverse. We have the hills and the flats, which economically is very diverse as well, as you can tell. I went to Skyline High School, which sits in the hills of Oakland, but it doesn't mean like the hills kids go to that school. It's still kids from East of my neighborhood going to that school. So when running for office, I definitely got to see the different dynamics of the needs of the people who I wanted to vote for me from the Hill, saying, they wanted fire safety, they wanted more policing, they wanted, different things invested to the people in the flats. Like, I want a park, I want safety in a different way. I want some investment into community resources or a community hub central in East Oakland is what they were asking for. Like, where can I start a business and go to a centralized hub to learn how to start my business and not, mess up on paperwork, just accessible to them to try to enterprise those things. That's very different from the from the hills, again, saying like, I don't want my house to catch on fire. I don't want a home invasion to keep happening to me. But they're very both important, right? So also understanding in this work of trying to be a city council member, how do you navigate who's priority, what gets funded, what is needed, what do you want the district to look like once you do these plans or actions? But being a mother, on the end of this, my baby was still young. He was 5 at the time when I ran. And he was okay with being in the red wagon, being pulled, door knocking, and, saying hi to strangers. After I ran for office, my son got involved with the Oakland Dynamites, which is a local football team. And I really got to see his personality blossom of him being in his own activities. And it made me really reflect the same struggle internally I was having with running for office when talking to the kids of people who were running for office. A lot of the kids were resentful, to be honest. A lot of them were very angry that they didn't make time for them in the midst of running for office. And for myself, it felt like an ego thing to say, like, I want to run for office, but as a mother and a single mother to a 5-year-old, the real person who's going to make that sacrifice doesn't even understand what's happening. Like, he going to miss out on his mama. That's the reality. I'm not going to be able to be there for the practices, the games, the Halloween, the traveling football moments. It's always going to be somebody else's need was in front of his. And so as a parent, I got a lot of support from people who were like, I'll keep your baby. Esmeralda was there with me and kept Kai. And I tell her all the time how much that helped me seeing my baby front row with somebody I trust. So that eliminates, like, is he getting bounced around? And where is he? Like, he's playing with Esmeralda's hair in the front row. That's what he's doing today. Right? But as you listen to your child and you hear them say, like, I want to go to football practice. I want to just hang out with you and go to the movies. You understand that time as somebody who was in that public eye would have been very, very limited. And the sacrifice, again, would have not been mine, but my baby's. And I just chose her.
Before we move on, Mya, I wanted to bring up, we spoke on your role as a single mother, but me and you also share an important role on where we are both aunties to young children. And whether that's biological or not, we have a lot of young children in our lives that we want to see win. I wanted to ask you, what is the role that you took on with your nieces and why?
So I would not say I'm their mother. I think that's a very intimate space, first of all. My sister was their mom, is their mom, did their best as what their mom is, and their experience of their mom is their experience. So I want to give grace to that. Like, I can never replace Tatiana. I don't plan to. I am honored when they say I give them the feelings of their mother, but I know I would never replace her. I'm an auntie, and as a young person who grew up out here, I understand how much it's important to have good role models that are telling you can do good, but also supporting you more than just talking at you. So I really try to show them, like, everything is a choice. Like, auntie makes a choice to get a good job so that I could provide for us to go back and forth between LA, which means I have to take my job serious, which means I need time to focus on it. Even bringing them to my job, having my nieces say, like, they never went to work with somebody and sat at an office and seen, like, we get up, we go to work, we get dressed. We don't wear bonnets to the school. Like, we really try, even if you're tired, like, trying to just teach them, wear a skirt. If you want to wear sweatpants, like, wear a skirt, girl. Just, we don't look like what we're going through, because we are going through stuff. So just try to teach them the tricks of the trade of, like, I'm not saying there's not going to be bad days, but, like, just try to teach them, like, they are not what they've been through right now, and supporting and being young women. I haven't lost my parents yet, so I don't know what it's like, and I can't, again, make excuses for how that's impacting them. I can only imagine they're going to have their good and their bad days. The oldest just turned 16, and the youngest just turned 3. So everybody's at different ages right now of what that means and their experience with their mom. And so just trying to be supportive. But as far as the youngest, she is being raised by her dad, who's doing an amazing job by himself, regardless, to also give grace to him. Like, he just lost his first child's mother to some traumatic stuff, and the baby's 3. He's also going through stuff. And she got 2 other kids, and he steps up for those kids as well. And we only in our 30s. This is a lot. So,
Yeah, and Maya, you shared with me earlier too that it looks different. Support for each of your nieces look different from the 16-year-old to the 3-year-old. Would you be comfortable to share with me what it looks like to support your 3-year-old niece and her father?
So when it comes to those two, I think their support more so make sure that he knows he could call me. He's very independent, but making sure that he knows that line is available. He, make sure that the baby FaceTimes me when he's in California. He makes sure that I know so I can try to get down there to spend time with her. So even with her mama passed, and I've seen her about 3 times in the last year, which is pretty good. I had only known my sister for 8 years. I just found out I had a sister and a dad 8 years ago. So I just met all these people. And so it's been a roller coaster, but that's why I think it's even more important because they don't understand that I just met Tatiana. They just feel like that's your sister, like they're sisters. And so I'm trying to teach them this is just how we handle this. Like your sisters, the different needs, I would say. My 16-year-old, I call her my model scientist. She's extremely brilliant. She's into fashion. She's the manager of cheer. She's a busy little person, very smart, articulate. I mean, she did argue me about a Disneyland ticket. So anybody that ain't scared to argue with me about a ticket to Disneyland, you got part, sis. She did go to Disneyland. So, like, Momo, who is my Ninja Turtle, won the fight. And as somebody that also used to fight all the time and couldn't really explain why I was fighting, I don't excuse it, but I just continue to warn her of what is to come and how she can't be like me if she go to jail. That's not even an option. And so, like, trying to just help her as she's going into middle school right now, understand her life is changing. We all remember being in middle schools. Little boys just got introduced, so we in a whole nother game right now. Like, are you listening? You're not. So how do we work with this? So like, and then like I said, my youngest, she's only 3, so making sure that her dad feels supported, that he takes it very serious being a single father, and I just respect it all the way because that's not, again, you don't really see that. Um, he never will like you could take the baby or never came out his mouth. Like he was immediately like, okay, well, I'll tell you when I'm in town. You can see her like, okay. Like, I'll be on my best behavior because you are her father. So,
Yeah, and I think you really value like what it shows is like to take care of your 3-year-old niece means to take care of her immediate parents as well. And in this case, that's what you're doing. You're providing a community support for him. And in turns, it's going to show in your niece too, because that's what you can do in this moment as an aunt. And I really wanted to thank you because I learned a lot from you too. I always call Maya like another mother figure for me because she also just, I felt very comfortable speaking about emotions with Maya, and that's not something I can say with a lot of people. And so I just really wanted to uplift you as an individual too, Maya. You do a lot, so thank you. Rhea, this brings me to a question for you. You're a dedicated pediatrician. Can you share a practical thing that a community member or an aunt like Maya and I can do to help the development of the emotional and social aspects of a child 5 or younger?
First, I'm learning so much from what Maya is sharing. Like, you guys are both really beautiful, wonderful people that I'm so glad I live close to both of you. You're good people. I think Maya actually modeled a lot of that in how you talked about your nieces and how you talked about Kai. Like, you've multiple times talked about who they are. And I think child development is like an unfolding. At first, we don't know what baby's like, right? They can't communicate to us their interests, but slowly as they develop more ability to communicate and move and navigate the world, they start to focus on some things so we can figure out what things do they like. They start to drift towards certain interests and demonstrate certain proficiencies. And when we can recognize those things in them and then reflect them back to them, like you said about your one niece, you are extremely brilliant. You like science, like reflecting those things back to them and then affirming it. Like, I think that's great. That's really beautiful to see. That's special and unique about you. And that you're able to do that and differentiate all the young people in your life to say, like, this is specific to you. But, Mama loves, these other things. And that's special and different. And we're going to affirm that. And then, Kai wears 3-piece suits and loves football and like found an outlet for their interests in football. Like, I think it's really important for children to have these close emotional attachments to adults that are in their lives. Sometimes the word for that is a primary attachment figure. It's like a single person that's in their life that they look up to, that cares for their physical needs and well-being. So you feed them, you house them, you get them dressed, you clean them. But you also care for their emotional needs and their social development. So you model for them healthy relationships, like supporting your niece's father. That's a way to show your niece how adults interact in ways that are loving and supportive. Or you show up supportive relationships just to your child themselves and just encourage them to have these emotional conversations. Like Esmeralda says, she feels comfortable having with you. I bet your nieces and your son also feel comfortable with you in that way. So those are the main things. I think adults have to be that primary figure. And for kids who have experienced degrees of loss, which there is some data around that for Black and Hispanic kids in particular, that Black and Hispanic kids experience more loss than other kids. They're more likely to lose a parent or a grandparent caregiver. That was especially exacerbated during the last few years of the pandemic, when, over 1 million Americans lost their lives, but there was a disproportionate loss of Black and Latino parents and caregivers. And so when that happens, other caregivers have to step up to stand in that gap, to be that primary figure. And so something that can be encouraging, I guess, is that children need one. So even if other people can't do it because of whatever they're going through, they can't show up in a child's life in that way, or the person who was doing it passed away or was no longer able to continue doing it for whatever reason, as long as somebody can be that person, then kids they have what they need to go through healthy development, discover who they are, become that person, and thrive in those roles. So Mya, to your credit, it sounds like you were that person for a number of kids, which is just such a wonderful, wonderful thing about you. Like it's incredible you ran for office, because that also models for the community. But this role you are in kids' lives is life-changing, literally.
I'm sitting with everything you just said, Rhea. I think hearing you say all of this, like, I didn't know that it's more likely that a Black or brown young person will experience loss more, to a greater degree, or even more often than their counterparts. I think I needed a moment to set that in, because you're showing a pattern to me, and I'm just like, why is this true? Like, it kind of just took me aback a little bit there. I do have time open for you all, for Mya and Rhea, to ask each other questions if you feel like there's something on your mind that you want to ask.
I would like to ask a question. My question would be, in these new roles, especially with like fentanyl and stuff taking over with kids and them experience loss through drug addiction at this point, how do we support them with that? Like, I think that this is a different type of violence. Fentanyl is so quick. At least sharing my own experience, what I was able to tell my nieces. My sister told me she was doing cocaine in January. She was found overdosed in September of methamphetamine. So she felt more comfortable disclosing that she was on cocaine with me for whatever reason then she did that there was some real stuff going on with this meth, and that she was really in something deep in Vegas. And so how do we really explain this to children of the progression of mental health tied around this? And like the severity of, like I said, we went from talking to her one night to we got a phone call to it's on. This is a whole different life. It wasn't, she got sick, or we knew it was just lost her apartment, living in a hotel, coroner's calling us. So how do we support children where, like, you know, like I said, the quickness, the unexpectedness of drug addiction and mental health, just helping them kind of understand, like, it's beyond them. It really is.
In the United States, one thing that's really separates us from other countries that are also super rich and wealthy is that we have a very high mortality rate, which means more people are dying here at younger ages than other countries. Because of that, our life expectancy, like how many years each of us can expect to live in the United States, is actually going down now. So for most of the wealthy world, because countries have so much money and they use that money usually to pay for healthcare for their citizens or basic infrastructure like clean air, clean streets, all the things that keep people well. Mostly healthy countries, every year that time goes on, people live longer and longer and longer. But now in the United States, we're living less and less long. And over the pandemic, we saw some of the steepest drops in life expectancy in the country since the Great Depression in the 1920s. Part of what's driving that drop is how deadly the opioid epidemic is. The substance use problem we have in this country is contributing to premature death, people who are dying well before age 70, well before, for Black folks, 65, is decreasing our overall life expectancy. So I say that to say, like, this problem is enormous. Like, what happened to your sister is happening to adults across America at rates we've never seen before. And to fix these problems, which are rooted in structural inequality, we need structural solutions. Like, we need first, like, access to substance use treatment that is free and equitably available. So going to something like a rehab can feel like a luxury, honestly, in certain communities. And it shouldn't be a luxury. It should be a basic public good, just like water that runs through our faucet. The government pays for it and everybody gets to receive it at a high quality level because that's how needed it is right now. But so we need equal access to substance use services and programs. We need increased access to mental health programs. One of the initiatives I work with is trying to think about what that looks like for kids so that we can get Medicaid, the state health insurance, to just pay for kids to have access to more programs that support their emotional well-being. People need to have meaningful work that pays them. Like, Mya, when you were talking about, like, kids seeing that when the day starts, you get up, you get dressed, you know, you brush your teeth, you eat something, and you go to a place of work where you feel good about what you're doing, where your day has purpose and direction. Like, some of the reasons why people don't do that is because there sometimes aren't, as you know, access to those types of opportunities. Like, we need to make sure people have opportunities to do work that's meaningful, that pays them really well, so that, people have all their needs met and can meet the needs of their kids. And then the other thing I just wanted to say, because I know I've said this, talked for a while now, is just the other structural support we need in this country that we don't have is childcare. When you were talking, Mya, about, like, Kai coming with you when you were running for office, and, like, you felt good because he was with Esmeralda in the front row, which was amazing, Esmeralda, that you could be there as a community person. You, in that moment, were filling the gap, like you said, of a larger structural need that our government doesn't supply for everybody. Like, we need universal childcare. Every parent needs to know that their kids are well looked after for them to be able to have meaningful employment and make enough money to care for their kids. Like, every parent needs that, whether you're a billionaire or whether you live in the projects. Like, everybody needs that. Billionaires can pay to get that on their own. The rest of us, childcare is super expensive. And so universal childcare, or having actual access to childcare for everybody, I think would be like a major game changer, especially for single parents and single moms who don't have another person to rely on when they need to do something, to go to the store, to make dinner, to take a break, or to work. So I think that's another structural inequality piece that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. That was so informative. I just want to share like that. Wow. Do you have a book or any articles I can research or anything after? I really want to keep like learning more about this to know like I felt crazy when this all happened. Like, why is nobody talking about this? Like, it just felt like my sister passed and it just kind of like addiction. Like, she was one of 6 people that died from overdose within a 2-mile radius that weekend. That's not by chance. So, you know, that and hearing you say this data, it is something going on. We kind of have like a lot of structural inequalities, which I know is true. Thank you, because it helps. It's some of it, like we said, some people are making choices before they even understand this choice going to lead to this, and how are you going to get out of it is almost impossible. We have no money for a meth rehab. I don't even know if she would have went in Vegas. If I brought her to Oakland, I don't know any meth rehabs. I work in mental health, and I've never heard of a meth rehab out here, at least. So you saying these things is like, wow, yes. How would a family have a plan of action around that? In poverty, we got to go to work. I can't leave you with the kids. You know, yeah. Wow, and I didn't know it was taking so much of our life expectancy in the United States. That's also pretty alarming, and people are still not waking up. Like,
I feel exactly how Maya was. I'm honestly really shocked as well, because when we're talking about individual death, we're talking about family loss, community loss, and it's this domino ripple effect. And imagine what the opposite will do, right? If we, as structural leaders in our world, actually really honored our stories, our collective stories, and our collective pain to make our world better. I will just put this world thinking for everyone and the listeners, and we can just think of this world but not answer this question right now. So this part of the podcast is our time capsule that can be revisited in the next century, year 2123. I want our guests and our listeners to describe to themselves the world where our youngest and most vulnerable children are living happy and healthy. What does that community look like? What does it sound like? And what does it feel like? That's what I want to leave our community with. Feel free, for anyone listening, to text or leave us a voicemail at 661-388-6727. I, Esmeralda, the podcast host, will be the one that reviews the text messages and voicemails. So please feel free to contact us and let us know, what does this community in the year 2123 look like for you? Thank you both so much for today. Like, I really needed this conversation, and it was also very, I think it shows us, I feel like I have hope at the end of this. Like, I know we've all been through stuff and we will continue to go through things as in life, but to know that like I have a community where like can talk to people about this very important topic with the both of you just really sat well with me today. Thank you for joining us today on our podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the National Center for Youth Law. To suggest a podcast topic or to express interest in being a podcast guest, please email health@youthlaw.org.